Hey there, welcome to East and West. Let's talk about Dealer Healer. Based on real-life events that took place between the 60s and the 80s, this Hong Kong co-produced film was first released in China in May of 2017. The film starts off being narration-driven from the point of view of a man who is currently being interviewed for Young Person of the Year award. Even though the guy looks like he's in his 40s, but we'll ignore that particular detail for now. As he talks, we quickly find out that this guy was once a high-profile triad leader, particularly among the Zhaozuanshan district in Hong Kong. He was also a drug dealer and abuser, although after being freed from prison, he has since dedicated his life to getting other kids in a similar position as he was off the street and through a drug rehab. At least, this is how the film starts off. It very quickly changes topics as the characters move on to do something entirely different. And then they do it again. And again. In fact, it does it so much that if I wanted to sit here and talk about even half of the things that actually happen in this film, I would be here talking for so long it would literally be quicker for you to go out and just watch the movie. And the reason for this is that I've made the mistake so far of referring to this thing as a movie. In fact, it would be far more accurate to refer to this as a 95-minute long montage of random events. And this is something you'll notice pretty much immediately. When we first start the film, you see a guy talking, and then he starts flashing back to his past in the 60s, and then it fast forwards to the 70s. Then goes back to the 60s again, and then it goes to two different points during the 70s, and then somewhere entirely different. I honestly can't remember where at this point. And while that might sound like it'd be confusing to watch, it's actually surprisingly easy to follow, probably helped by the fact that they have literal timestamps during the start of each scene transition. But it doesn't change the fact that it sounds like complete madness, right? Well, prepare yourselves for a ride. But before we actually proceed, let me answer the question that is no doubt going to be asked. Did I actually like this film? Well, I didn't hate it. At least I don't think that I did. To put it very, very simply, this movie just confuses me. There's a very auteur-style feel to this, except this is an auteur with a budget behind them. The best way to describe how this movie feels is to basically just describe exactly what it is. As mentioned, this was based on a real story, so the idea here is to try and take 20 years of some guy's life and all the lucky chances and coincidences that happened during it, and shrink it down into just over an hour and a half. But usually when movies like this are made, they try to keep the narratives flowing by keeping the events of such a time period to, one or two major plot points. This movie doesn't do that. And despite of, or probably even because of the large production values behind this thing, this movie has technical randomness in the exact same way that an enjoyable B-movie is a technical mess. There is just such a myriad of bizarre choices and radical decisions in this that you will constantly be just questioning your own eyes. Every 10 minutes something new and wonderful will appear, whether it be the events that constantly change every few scenes without any connecting idea, rhyme, or basically even location, to the editing effects that just pop out of nowhere as though they're trying to make sure they can use as many as they can in the time limit they have. I'm talking editing choices such as solo cut jumping, slow motion, adding name tags into the film, saturation editing, weird naturalistic aerial shots of volcanoes, and just in case you'd forgotten by this point, and I wouldn't be surprised if you did, this is a film that is apparently about triads and drug rehabilitation. And all of these diverse and bizarre editing choices get used once or twice in a 5-minute period, and then never get used again. This thing is practically avant-garde in its editing choices. And it's not just the editing that has the attention span of a hyperactive child. Everything about the individual scenes themselves is constantly moving forward at a breakneck pace. By the time you've even had a chance to process anything that's just happened, we're already 2 freaking scenes down the line. There is just so much that's happening in this. It's like if you took an entire season of a TV show, took out like snippets, and then pushed it into the size of a movie. No, just no. It's just consistently going, just new scene, new character, new tone. Who are these people now? New scene, what are they doing now? Why are they here? What, pray tell, was this shot with the birds about? New scene, new plot point, new moral. Why are we back here again? Did what I think just happened really just happen? What the heck was with that shot? New scene, why was that fight laughably bad? Wasn't this a plot point from earlier? New scene. And here's a fun game, see if you can figure out how much of that montage I just played was in the same order it appears in the film. I mean, technically, there is a timeline here. There are sort of acts to this film, kind of, but they don't really impact the story in any way, aside from the fact that they just sort of preceded the events that are now happening. Act 1, if you want to call it that, is all set during his younger years. Act 2 is him getting rehab and trying to run his own rehab center. Act 3 is what happens after he gets the Outstanding Person of the Year award. Yeah, remember that? That was a thing, wasn't it? And then, in the last half hour, there's like an entire short film strapped onto the end with its own 3-act structure. There's an entire 10 minutes worth of crime scene investigation, then there's about 10 minutes worth of romantic drama, and then there's about another 10 minutes of hospital tragedy. And then there's 2 random scenes that have literally nothing to do with anything else that ever came before in the movie ever, and then the film just ends. This entire thing is a total nightmare. To the point where I would almost call this an absurdist comedy. Not because there's anything over the top or ridiculous within the scenes themselves, but when the film that I'm watching changes about 17 times on a dime, like there's some sort of prankster behind the projector set, I find myself being incapable of doing anything else but laughing and just asking myself, what am I watching right now? And definitely not helping is the fact that there's moments where I legitimately don't know if they're actually meant to be humorous or not. Like, I don't normally laugh at torture scenes in movies, but I find the torture scenes in this film funny. Deliberate choice or just completely mismatch of tone? I have absolutely no idea. In fact, throughout the entire film, there are exactly 3 things that remain consistent. The first is this weird obsession the film has with bodily functions. Particularly the ones that most people generally don't want to be thinking about, so if you're someone that has a queasy stomach, I just look away fast. The second one is the overall visual style. While the editing and the framing is constantly erratic, the actual look of the film and the bright, eye-catching colors is always there, and it's always wonderful. No matter what's actually happening at the moment, there's always just bright slabs of color and visuals that are guaranteed to grab your attention, particularly when they do these wide, sweeping building shots, which are wonderfully fake and in a good way. I actually wouldn't be against watching an entire film that looks like this. And the final thing that's consistent, and the only thing that's actually a problem for me, is the soundtrack. Because this thing never shuts up. I've seen operatic stage shows that have subtler instrumental work than in this film. Whenever anything happens in this film, no matter how important it is or even what it is, you are guaranteed first and foremost to notice the music. Even the eye-catching visuals that I just mentioned cannot draw your attention hard enough away from the music that's just blaring through your ears. And that is the one thing that I can say with absolute certainty is actually a problem with this film. The fact that the soundtrack is loud enough to actually be physically painful. However, that also means that all the other things I'm talking about, I therefore don't consider to be problems. I will let you draw your own conclusion about what that means. All in all, the best way to describe this film, without a doubt, is that it's an experience. I have no idea if it's an experience you will enjoy or not, because frankly, I don't even know if I enjoyed it or not. I think the only thing I can say with certainty is that if you are someone that really likes characters and plot points and narratives, you're not going to find it here. So stay away. For anybody else, if you wish to watch it, well, I bid you good luck. And because I still have to do this arbitrary score thing, no matter what the film is, I give this film 3 white lilies and 3 sheer blades. So that was my review of Dealer Healer. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks so much for watching. Till next time.